here we are. So, haven't filmed in a while. No one's fault but my own, obviously. I've just been too focused on getting all this done correctly because of all the mistakes I made doing the Sportster chop. I was trying to avoid doing those on this one. But this thing is 99% done right now. But yeah, so quick recap of what's been done since the last video. I don't even know what the last video I recorded was, but like I said, this thing is 99% done right now. I got the frame powder coated. The powder coat did not come out the way I wanted. I wanted it to be an actual like 24 karat gold look. It came out looking like some kind of shitty light diet gold or something, which is where I'm actually naming this bike. A good chopper's got to have a name, so I'm calling this one Fool's Gold because it's not gold. Everything on the engine's done. Completely rebuilt from splitting the cases all the way up to new oil lines and everything, new ignition, new timing cover, whatever. Transmission, put in an adjustable transmission plate on here to tighten up the primary belt. And I also got this fancy little bracket mounted up underneath the transmission that holds the 30 amp breaker and the voltage regulator, which feeds directly into the battery, which is in the oil tank. Paint came out all right. I don't exactly know what happened, but the clear coat started to crack a couple days after I got it done. The tank's not up here yet just because it's sitting over here waiting on polish. I just haven't polished it because I've been taking it off and putting it back on to run the wiring and whatnot. So that's the last thing I'm gonna do is polish up that tank and then throw the petcock on, run the fuel lines, the carb. That would be the last thing I do. All the wiring's done. Very, very rudimentary wiring on this thing. Literally headlight, tail light, brake switch, and ignition. That's it. It's a kickstart bike. Don't need a starter. Don't need any of that stuff. Brake lines have been ran. Just the one brake master cylinder here on the right side. Brake lines going back to a T to feed both Brembo calipers in the rear. Fishtails came out great. They stick out about 1.5 feet past the back tire, which is what I was going for. Something very long, very in your face. They look great. I put a thunder header on my new Road Glide, so I took that exhaust off and it just was sitting in a corner and I had all the heat shields. So I ended up hacking up one of the heat shields to make 2 little heat shields to cover up the mounting brackets for the exhaust where the fishtail mufflers meet the header pipes. That looks pretty good. As you can see, this is the color I went with there and on the back fender. It's called Merlot Candy. I kind of was going back and forth between a few colors. I ended up settling on a darker red. This has a lot of microflake in it. In the sun, it really, really pops. It looks good. Like I said, it's just that clear coat cracked, and it doesn't look right, but it looks all right. Came with a set of drag bars. I did not like them. They looked terrible on this bike, so I ended up buying the TC Bros bootleggers. They look fantastic with the Springer. It's a little bit narrower. I ended up cutting about 2 inches off the ends to bring them in a little bit more. As far as the specs on this goes, standard wheelbase length for a big twin. The only difference is the Springer is a 6-over. So it sits a little bit taller in the front. So the last thing I need to do, and it's been a problem to do it because Paco did not send me the fittings I needed for the oil tank, and then they ended up sending them to me, and they ended up being the most insane AN fittings that I'm not going to use. So I've been trying to find 1/8" NPT to 3/8 barb fittings, which I couldn't find anywhere local. Didn't want to order them online. So I'm trying to get this thing started this weekend. So I ended up going to a fastener store that happened to be open today on a Saturday and got the fittings I need and the hose I need. So all I need to do is plumb up the oil tank, feed, return, vent, all that from the oil pump to the oil tank, and then put some oil in it, prime it, get some oil running through this thing. Like I said, hook up the gas tank, fuel lines, and get this puppy started. So that's what we're going to be doing, hopefully, in this video. I know I missed a lot of detail in this video, in this series of videos. I missed a lot because I was like I said, too focused on getting things done the right way, racking my brain, hitting up friends I know that have done stuff like this, shovelheads specifically, trying to figure things out so I don't fuck it up. So recording has not been a strong suit of mine. If there is any information anybody wants on what I did that I do not go over, let me know. Hit me up in the comments, hit me up on Instagram. I'll be more than happy to send pictures, information, whatever. I'll give it all up. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to be putting together a parts list or anything like that. 90% of this thing is Paco. Even the exhaust is Paco. The controls I bought off somebody. The clutch I bought off somebody. The clutch and open primary kit I bought off somebody. It's a chopper. Most of it is just pieces thrown together. Stuff I had lying around. As you'll see with my chain connected to my clutch for my foot pedal. It's just a gold Cuban chain I had that I threw on there. The shifter is probably the coolest thing on this bike. My buddy Rich builds some badass choppers, and he also builds them in a crematorium. And I hit him up. He sent me a titanium hip joint he pulled out of the cremator or the oven or whatever you want to call it, and sent it to me, and I had a local machine shop drill and tap it for the shifter. It's wild looking, it's cool looking. You look at it, you don't really know what it is, and then so a few custom parts on this bike. But I originally bought it just a 3-position key to turn on the ignition and everything. I ended up actually just fabbing up a little panel here with some switches. So this top switch is going to be low beam, high beam, and then the bottom switch is just ignition on. I think that cleans it up a little bit. I still got to get in here with some zip ties, clean up the wiring, clean up the brake lines a little bit. But that's all last minute stuff. Once I get the tank on, I'll start really finishing stuff up on here. So one thing I've noticed about this Paco oil tank is the threads inside the oil tank for the vent and return are a little crusty. And I don't have a thread chaser for 1/8 inch NPT. So I'm just being really careful, but it's kind of hard to get them started. But once they get started, they seem to go pretty easy. So this is the fitting I ended up having to go with. It's actually a 1/8 inch NPT male to female elbow, and then a 1/8 inch to 3/8 bar, because I needed an elbow and they didn't have any. But luckily the guys over at the fastener shop hooked me up and got these pieced together for me. So there's the two up here. This is the vent and return, and then there's one on the back side here. I'm gonna move the camera. This is the actual feed line. And there's also another one. It's a 5/8 coarse thread bolt. It's a drain plug right here. So there's 4 total openings on this oil pan. There's a little bit going on with the oil pump on the shovel head, but basically, so to the oil tank or vice versa, there's going to be 3 lines. We got this one up top here, which is the crankcase vent. 3/8 ID tube is what I got. So this one on the inside is the return. So that's also going to go to the top of the oil tank. And then this one on the outside is also 3/8 is going to be the feed line, which is going to come from the back bottom of the oil tank. So again, 3 lines, all 3/8. Vent, return, and feed. And then up here on the oil tank, the vent right here, return, and then the feed right here on the back. It's actually probably good I didn't get the elbows, because it would have been hard to get the elbows on here with the down tubes and the top of the frame. So, worked out.